On this episode of the Venus Cuckoldress podcast.
She brought something up that she had never said before, and it really surprised me. But basically, she said that she doesn't know if she could enjoy sex at all unless she was really emotionally bonded with the person she was having sex with. Each time we would talk about cuckolding, it would seem more and more like she was getting on board with it, and then I just felt like all of a sudden kind of the rug got pulled out from under me.
For women, it's really difficult to imagine that by going and sleeping with someone else or having this sexual encounter with someone else, that experience is actually going to create these huge wave of emotions, of love, of closeness, of trust between you and your cuck. So you think that you're missing out on that by fucking someone else, when in reality, you are actually having this insanely euphoric moment between you and your cuck.
It's a completely different experience, right? And if you've never conceptualize that other experience. Like if you only know sex as this close, bonded, intimate act based in love, then it is going to be hard for her to conceptualize. And I think what's so hard for this listener is that he really feels like, when he said, I was punched in the stomach, oh gosh, I felt for him. I think that what he's facing is that it feels like a closed door. But I don't think it's a closed door, and I'll tell you why.
Welcome to the Venus Cuckoldress podcast, a place to learn all things cuckolding for the curious, the passionate, and the sexually empowered woman who wants it all. Make sure you go to venuscuckoldress.com to subscribe to the podcast and check out the Venus blog. And of course, if you love it, share it. Now, sit back, make yourself comfortable, and enjoy the show with your host, Venus.
Welcome to this episode of the Venus Cuckoldress podcast. I'm your host, Venus. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today is going to be awesome because I have the wonderful Cuckoldress Scarlett joining me. She's a great friend of mine, and we're going to try to tackle a listener question, and she has some really great advice for this listener. So make sure you stay tuned and maybe even take out your notepad and pen to take some notes because it's really great advice. Now, Cuckoldress Scarlett is often also a guest on my Pillow Talk events, and Pillow Talk is like a crowdcast event that is open to any of my Patreon supporters who can register, and then when we go live, it is myself, usually Cuckoldress Scarlett, usually some other ladies join me as well on video, and we answer audience questions. So there's like a chat where you can make comments and see what everybody else is having to say. There's also a button there where you can ask your questions. So we can go through the questions that people ask us. It's always tons of fun, lots of fun. It's one of those nights where time goes by really fast. It's usually like a couple of hours. The last one went on really long. So we were just having a really great time. Anyway, if you'd like to catch that, you can go to venuscuckoldress.com, click on the tab that says Pillow Talks, and there'll be some instructions about how to register for that. Now, I'm about to get started with my conversation with Cuckoldress Scarlett, but first, here's a little message from my friend Nookie at datingkinky.com.
Are you in the market for kinky and not quite vanilla people to connect with, date, or even just enjoy some adult fun? Maybe you're looking for the chance to learn from experts on relationships, sex, and kink education topics. Hi, I'm Nookie Notes, and if you answered yes to those questions, I invite you to check out my site, Dating Kinky. At Dating Kinky, we provide a one-of-a-kind dating site experience. You'll find an education hub with live and on-demand classes and workshops, books, and more, and an interactive community where people from around the world can meet and engage. And coming up on the horizon, look for the premiere of our Dating Kinky app, due to be released in February 2021. For more details, come check out our website at datingkinky.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at datingkinky and on Instagram at datingkinkyofficial. I look forward to meeting you. Thanks, and have a kinky day.
All right. And without further ado, let's get started. Here's my conversation with Cuckoldress Scarlett. Here with me today is Cuckoldress Scarlett. Thank you so much for joining me and helping me to answer this listener question. First of all, I'd love for you to tell me a little bit about your blog, Cuckoldress Musings. So what's that all about?
Thanks so much, Venus. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be on the podcast. Thanks for asking about my blog. I have poured a lot of love into it. This was just a project that I started during the pandemic when I think all of us were a little bit starved for community and communication. And I've always loved writing, and I never occurred to me to write about the lifestyle until I started getting connected more with the community and seeing new things and, wanting to really share my experience and my perspective. So my blog is really just about my experience in cuckolding with my cuck, there's a little bit about how we transitioned in. There's a very sexy writing about my love of orally servicing Black men. It's titillating, but it's also very informative, and I think your listeners would really enjoy it. So thanks so much for asking about it.
Yeah, it's a wonderful blog. I love it. When you first came out with it, I was just beyond excited. I was thrilled to have another woman writing. Oh, I was so excited. It's a really wonderful, well-written blog. It's cuckoldressscarlett.com. All right, so tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and your relationship and where you're from.
Thanks. Okay, so I am in a cuckolding relationship. I am in the U.S. I live in the great state of Texas. And me and my fiance have been together about 7 years. And we started as a very typical monogamous vanilla couple, maybe a little bit kinky, but just between us, right? Mm-hmm. But we always had very open communication, very, into exploring and having an exciting sex life. But about 4 or 5 years ago, it's probably closer to 5 now, we both decided to open up our relationship and, start seeing where adding some new people could bring some spice into things. So we transitioned into more of a swinger dynamic. But we were talking about earlier, it was really kind of like pseudo Stag Vixen situation where mm-hmm. I was getting most of the play and he was more watching. And so that really opened us up to being a little bit more comfortable with trying new things. But what I didn't know that whole time is that my fiance was really kind of playing through some cuckolding fantasies in his head. He knew about cuckolding and was very desirous of having a cuckolding relationship, but it did take him a little while to be able and willing to tell me about it. And that happened a little over 3 years ago. And I just took to it when he told me, you always say, I can have my cake and eat it too. Mm-hmm. And he liked to say, best of both worlds, which I think also applies, right?
Yeah,
definitely. So we've been exploring and growing in our cuckolding relationship for the past 3 years.
Yeah, you guys have really evolved. I love reading your tweets on Twitter. Just what really comes through is, okay, yes, this lifestyle is sexy as fuck, but also the intimacy, the emotional intimacy and love and connection of your relationship is clear. Mm-hmm. Like, it's beautiful what you write about your relationship with him.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I really, when you say cuckolding is love, and it is love. bond that a cuckolding relationship is built on is 100% all about love and affection, deep romantic love. And, cuckolding has only deepened and improved that for us. Mm-hmm. We have a more open, honest connection than I think most couples could possibly dream of. And, for my cuck, being devoted to me as his god, as his queen, is very appealing to him because he feels it's just another way to show me how much he loves me. Mm-hmm. It's so people think of couples, I think, as like always very sexy and always, doing something really hot. But, sometimes it's a Wednesday night and he just cooks me a really great dinner and wears his cage and it makes me happy and I wear my key and he eats me out and we have a great night and go to bed. That's what most of our life looks like. We have our very fun, salacious moments, but for the most part, we're just a regular couple, just normal. Leading out our life.
Yeah. I know. I think a lot of people think that my life as well is just full of, black dick and cuckolding scenarios every day. And like, just like, what? No, man, this is real life here. I still go to the grocery store and,
Right? Yeah. We need to function. We need to buy toilet paper and stuff. We're not just constantly having sex.
I don't live the life of a porn star. I'm like, no.
Right.
So it's funny you say that. Well, you know what? I got a question from a listener and I immediately, when I listened to it, I was like, you know what? I think I know the perfect person to help me answer this. So let's go ahead and have a listen to see what this listener wants to know.
Hey, Venus. Just want to start by saying I'm a huge fan of the show, and I didn't know how bad I needed a cuckold podcast until I started listening to yours. It's like a special treat whenever I see there's a new episode. It makes my day so much better. And I listen to each episode like at least twice as soon as it comes out. So thank you for making this podcast, and I don't know what I'd do without it now. But on to me and my question. I'm a 23-year-old Caucasian male, and I've been dating my girlfriend for 6 years. I'd say we have a great relationship emotionally and sexually. We're very open with each other and, pretty much talk about anything that's on our mind. We don't keep secrets from each other. And I told her about my cuckolding fantasy years ago. And she was always very accepting of it and, didn't make me feel bad or weird about it. But understandably so, she was very apprehensive from the get-go, which is totally understandable. In our conversations about it, she's brought up things like, what if she runs into someone that she knows or we know while she's out with a bull, or, what if people find out and, it ruins her reputation, which I'm totally understanding of. And those are all valid concerns. If she doesn't want people to know, then, people shouldn't know. And so we actually came up with a solution that you brought up in one of the previous episodes, to where if we ever do get into the lifestyle, maybe we would take weekend trips and use the time in a new city where no one really knows us to have fun and play, which was great. I thought, we were making progress and, one step closer into, making this into a reality. But recently, when we were having a discussion, she brought something up that she had never said before, and it really surprised me. But basically, she said that she doesn't know if she could enjoy sex at all unless she was really emotionally bonded with the person she was having sex with, which surprised me for a couple of reasons. A, because she had never said that before, and we've talked about it a bunch. And B, because she's only had sex with me. So I guess, obviously we're very we have a very strong emotional bond, and I'd say we're each other's best friends. So it would make sense that she would feel that way. But I know you brought this up in one of your previous episodes about a barrier to women getting involved in cuckolding is being able to separate the physical and emotional bond, or the physical and emotional aspects of sex. And I was wondering if you had any advice on this, if, maybe any of your friends in the lifestyle have dealt with this and they have anything that they could share on it. That would be great, because when she told me that, it kind of felt like I got punched in the stomach, because each time we would talk about cuckolding, it would seem more and more like she was getting on board with it. And then I just felt like all of a sudden kind of the rug got pulled out from under me. So obviously I want her to be happy foremost. So if that's just having a monogamous vanilla relationship with me, then, that's what makes her the happiest. So that's what I'll do. But if you have any advice, I would really love to turn our relationship into a cuckold relationship. So thanks so much, Venus. I love the show. And, if I hear any advice from you on this, that would be just amazing. Thanks.
Okay. So, wow, 23 years old. And I was just like, wow. Okay. But you know what? I'm not super surprised by that, because I get stats from my website, my blog, and the stats have told me for a very long time that this is a young audience that is consuming this. And so, which surprised me at first, because I was like, that's not typically what cuckolding has been, is with older couples who've been together for a very long time. And so to see these younger couples exploring this, I get so excited. I'm like, yes, there's a whole nother generation of cuckold couples out there.
I get excited too. Yeah. They've been together since they were 17. Yeah. He's 23. Yeah. And that's just, it's amazing, because it just, I think that, like you said, the perception for a long time was cuckold couples, or even non-monogamous couples, are older. They've been married like 25 years, had kids, done the whole thing. And here you have this 23-year-old. Obviously, I mean, I love that call. I am rooting for him, and he is obviously has a really good sense of what he wants. And that's amazing. I think the younger generation is becoming much more accepting that monogamy it's not all that, right? There are other alternative forms of relationship that can be much more fulfilling.
Yeah, Justin Lay Miller just said in his last Sex and Psychology post that research has shown that 1 in 5 Americans are in an open relationship. And I was like, whoa, that's a lot of people. So that's a lot of people who are challenging this stereotypical idea of monogamy being the one and only way. So that's fantastic. Yeah, with 23 years old and having an open mind, and they seem to have really great communication between each other. But now he's come across this stumbling block, which you know what? I get it. She's young. She's only ever slept with one guy. She does not know anything else beyond that. I'm sure that this would be, a big concern for her. But what do you think? Is this something that you can relate with? Is this something that you kind of struggled with in the beginning of your relationship as well?
Oh, I can really relate to a lot of what this listener has experienced. As far as considering how open and honest and patient he has been, and how much he's trying to introduce her to this style of relationship being for her, right? And then she comes back and says, I don't know if I can enjoy sex outside of this, really strong, bonded, close, intimate relationship like what we have. And I think that, unfortunately, this definitely affected me because society is constantly giving women these messages that the only way that you can really enjoy sex is if you are, in this very close relationship with someone who knows you really well and is going to be really safe. And, you know, that's what it takes to enjoy sex.
Yeah.
Which is bullshit. I mean, I hate to say it. It's bullshit. And I know you could probably agree with me there, Venus. That's not an accurate picture of what it takes to enjoy sex.
Yeah, it's so fucked up to think that women are being told, or whether blatantly or not, that in order for sex to be justified, there has to be love involved. It's like, no, actually, not at all.
Yeah.
But I get it. I mean, she's young. I didn't start to really thoroughly enjoy my sexuality until my late 20s. That's when I was like, you know what? I actually really love this side of me, and I want to celebrate this side of me. I want to explore it. I want to go with it. Like, and maybe it just takes a little bit of age and maturity to be able to get to that point. And so, like, for me, being in my early 20s, I don't know if I would have been ready for it back then, but I don't know. Go ahead. No, I was just going to say, I think that it might just take a little bit of time. I don't know. But for me now, knowing what I know now, and I did go through that kind of like sexual awakening or whatever you want to call it in my late 20s. But one of the things that I was able to learn that maybe she can learn now is to recognize that there's a big difference between sex and love. There is always going to be this kind of those love feelings and emotions, and sex being really great for that reason with her and her boyfriend. But there's also this kind of like exploration of your body and someone else's body outside of that. That's just as thrilling, but doesn't mean that, there's that kind of like, love fireworks going off at the same time.
Right. Just like you said, it's a completely different experience, right? And if you've never conceptualized that other experience, like if you only know sex as this close, bonded, intimate act based in love, then it is going to be hard for her to conceptualize. And I think what's so hard for this caller, this listener, is that he really feels like, when he said I was punched in the stomach, oh gosh, I felt for him. I think that what he's facing is that it feels like a closed door, but I don't think it's a closed door. And I'll tell you why. He can invite her into a conversation, right? Where he can actually say, so you're saying it needs to be an emotional bond. Ask her, what are the emotions that are going to really make up this emotional bond that she needs to enjoy sex? Is it safety? Does she need security in order to enjoy sex? Passion, attraction, lust? There's so many different emotions when it comes to sex. So have her write that list out. And then, I would invite her to rank them. Like, which is the most important to least important? And then you can invite her to a conversation and say, is it possible that if we were to invite a bull in and have a cuckolding scenario, that you could feel safe? I know for me, that answer would be yes, because I'm, with the man that I love and he makes me feel very safe. Is it possible that you could feel attraction to someone else besides me? Ask her if she has a celebrity crush, that she would like to sleep with. Like, is it possible for you to feel this? And I think that changes that from a very closed door to now we're having a dialogue, right? Yeah. Now she's beginning to understand that this is something that's possible and it's not a closed door anymore. So that was a piece of advice I wanted to offer him. I hope that it will be helpful, but we did a lot of these kind of exercises and possibility in the beginning of our journey, and we found them to be really helpful.
That is wonderful advice. That is fantastic. The other aspect that I'm wondering about, and I have a feeling that this is the case, is for women, it's really difficult to imagine that by going and sleeping with someone else or having this sexual encounter with someone else, that experience is actually going to create these huge wave of emotions, of love, of closeness, of trust between you and your cuck. So you think that you're missing out on that by fucking someone else, when in reality, you are actually having this insanely euphoric moment between you and your cuck, whether that's him watching or you telling him about it afterwards or whatever. That sexual experience is going to turn into this, like, you know, tsunami of emotions and wonderfulness. But it's hard to imagine that as a woman. It's like so hard to imagine that, because that's just not even in the realm of possibilities in your mind if you've never done it before.
Right. Totally. Yeah. And that was another like element, right? Is that it seems as though what the listener's girlfriend is worried about is not, you know, being able to enjoy sex, because it's almost like she thinks that like having sex with a bull or someone else is going to take away from or subtract from their emotional bond. And that couldn't be the furthest thing from the truth in a loving coupled relationship. The bull is this like supercharged conduit that just totally electrifies and lights on fire the bond that y'all have. And all of a sudden, this bond is just stronger than ever. Just when you thought it was the strongest it could be. It's like mind-blowing, totally mind-blowing. But just like you said, it's like outside the realm of possibility. It's one of those things that if you're open enough to experience it, you will experience it. And it's just about getting to that place. But the emotional bond that matters, the one between the listener and his girlfriend, the cuck and the cuckoldress, is the only emotional bond that's being strengthened and that matters in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? The part that I really struggle with is I feel bad for women who are in her position where she probably has no girlfriends that she can speak to about this, nobody to bounce this off of. It's just a conversation she's having with her boyfriend or husband. And I think for me, I would just hate to not have someone to talk to about it. Like, and you know, these women kind of got to struggle through this on their own, basically. And that really sucks. It just sucks, because if she was able to speak to you or I, like, we would be able to explain, like, look, there's so much more to this than you understand. Like, there's the possibilities are really pretty amazing. And so I wish that women had more of an outlet to be able to mentor each other and to connect with each other and to be able to, you know, bounce stuff off, ideas or questions or whatever, in order to support each other. Because I think a lot of women out there are just kind of sitting there and wondering all of this on their own. Like, they just have their husband to talk to or boyfriend to talk to, and that's it. Just such a lonely place to be, really.
It is a lonely place. It is a lonely place, because it just feels like it makes you feel like unique, right? Like, I'm the only person going through this, and it's not. You're not. We have all been there, like in different ways, and you know, we definitely have our differences in our journey, but those differences really help me to understand that, okay, like maybe they went through this at a different time and this is how they got through it. Well, I would go through this challenge differently. But you're right, just sitting there alone, and when your girlfriends are talking about, you know, like, God, I don't know what vanilla girlfriends talk about. Yeah. And you're like, my boyfriend wants me to like fuck someone else in front of him and put his dick in a cage. It's like, you know, those are not conversations you can have. So absolutely, Venus, you've always said women are the key to cuckolding, and that is so true. We have got to, I just feel a responsibility as a woman in the lifestyle to give back, because you know, I'm having an amazing experience in my relationship, and I want everybody who wants this kind of relationship to have it. And if there's anything that I can do to show someone it's possible, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, there's so much about this lifestyle that is behind closed doors, behind curtains, like that is not discussed. It's not even shared at all. And so yeah, I get that. It's, you know, your private sexual life. I get it. But at the same time, it's a barrier for women to really understand what this is all about. So absolutely, women are the key to cuckolding. Without women actually being the ones to speak up to other women, I don't think that it's ever going to be well understood or accepted by women. That's just the way it is. So.
Right.
Thank you so much for joining me today. Scarlett, absolutely love and adore you. And thank you so much for all of your writings on your blog. Fantastic. I always enjoy listening to what you have to say. And for anyone who wants to visit her blog, I hope you do. It's cuckoldressscarlett.com. And how do people reach you on Twitter?
I am Cuckoldress S. So 3 S's at the end. On Twitter. That's how you can find me. Venus, thank you so much for having me on. Yeah. The podcast is so excellent, and you are doing such wonderful work with it. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to reach out to your listener. I hope that some of this advice really helps him out. I'm rooting for him big time.
Yeah, I know, right?
So thank you so much for having you on, and I hope to be able to come back.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Yes. All right. That is a wrap for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you'd like to go to venuscuckoldress.com, you can check out the blog. You can subscribe to the podcast. And if you have a comment or question that you would like to submit to myself, please do go to venuscuckoldress.com. Click on the tab that says the Venus Hotline, Ask Venus, and you'll have up to 5 minutes to just share something with me. So I may or may not use it on the podcast. And if you'd like to find me on Twitter, I'm at cuckoldressv. You can always send me an email too at venus@venuscuckoldress.com. Thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you next time.